is emotional intelligence? Well, by definition, it's the ability to understand your own emotions and the emotions of others, to have empathy for your own emotions and the emotions of others. Did you know that 1 out of 3 doctors is sued? 20,000 lawsuits every year in the United States. For one reason why doctors are sued is often because of bad bedside manner. Where does this concept stem from? Well, you can trace it all the way back to Maslow and look back into the 1950s, and then there's some more research done in the 60s. But who really ended up making it famous was in 1998 when Goldman did a Harvard Business Review of what makes a great leader, and he spoke of this concept that has to do with emotional intelligence. I know, is emotional intelligence even real? Is it something made up? Is it a made up word? Where did it even come from? Is it real? Can it be improved? Why is it necessary? It's no wonder we're having a deficit in emotional intelligence, because from a very young age, you're taught not to feel. You're taught even that emotions are bad, that you shouldn't be led by your emotions. Don't be too emotional. Don't get too excited. Don't be sad. Don't get angry. Don't get stressed out. And then people say to feel. And so it's very confusing. What emotions are you to feel? What emotions are you not to feel? And then you get with a partner and you're very disconnected, right? So this is very, very important. Imagine leadership where people were leading with emotional intelligence. And rather than a world where everyone's like, you better not trigger me and trigger warning, if everyone was emotionally intelligent, then you are responsible. You're not responsible for the world to not trigger you or ruffle your feathers, because you have enough emotional sovereignty to manage that. Now, it's not about managing and controlling your emotions though, because often by doing that, that's suppressing it, and that is causing more of the same, more of the problem. But what if we learned to actually feel our emotions in a safe way? That's what's possible. That's what's possible with our kids. That's what's possible in relationship. That's what's possible in business. It's possible to be all of yourself everywhere you go, instead of just fractions of yourself and then wondering why you feel depressed because you have been suppressing. Instead, express so that you can be full of life and actually present. These are things that were keeping you up last night, I'm sure. The number one reason why doctors are sued is often because of bad bedside manner, bad communication skills, a lack of empathy, right? So sometimes the doctor could be narcissistic. Often they're overly empathetic, which enters them into a codependent relationship. Did you know a codependent relationship is always with a narcissist and an empath? Did you know that a lot of people in codependent relationships are doctors? And statistics show that these are repeat offenders. So a lot of times they don't know how to change the behavior. These people have high IQ, obviously, otherwise they wouldn't be able to go through medical school. But they have a low EI because maybe the codependent nature, maybe because this is something they learned as a kid, maybe because they're shoving down their emotions all the time as a doctor, as a service provider. You're not able to just start crying at it every moment. You can't authentically work off of people. Sometimes things are very, very sad and you have to do what needs to be done in that moment. So you suppress the emotions. A lot of people do this. Teachers, police officers, and that's why art can be a great way to express and heal. And we're gonna get to that because I have a specific, tangible way that you can raise your EI. In this day and age when all these robots are selling your best life and this and that, we don't know what's real. And that's another reason why emotional intelligence aspect of our lives is more important now than ever. The thing that a robot will never have that you do, that you have capability to improve, is your emotional intelligence. Some people believe that sociopaths, psychopaths, and narcissists have high emotional intelligence. Maybe because Hollywood portrayed them to be that way, like the maniacal villain. And while they have some emotional intelligence, because one of the factors of emotional intelligence is the ability to read behavior, to be able to understand body language, and that dark triad is very good at that because they want to read your behavior in order to know how to manipulate you. But what they lack is empathy and self-awareness, self-remorse, right? How can you boost your EI? Because doctors, like we mentioned, who are often sued repeatedly and often for the same thing, obviously don't know how to adjust the behavior. They're stuck in a behavior loop, which so many people are, right? Because you're just a set of patterns and behaviors. And when maybe you're used to a codependent relationship, if you're overly empathetic, then you can keep repeating that behavior. But what if you could actually have a dress rehearsal in life? Right? People always say, you don't get a dress rehearsal. But what if you could? What if a part of your physical, emotional health was also your creative health? As an acting teacher, I've been teaching the Meisner technique, which is a specific technique geared for actors, but can help many people to get out of your head and into your heart, right? So you can actually feel and live and be impulsive. And you get to know yourself in such a new way. Often people approach it thinking, I would never be like that, or they want to play a character and they say, I would never be like this, or I'm always like this. But when in reality, you don't know how you are until you're in a given circumstance. That's why a doctor who might have high IQ and logically understand the behavior, they can't readjust. Just like an actor who's maybe over rehearsed and doesn't work the way that I work from the inside out with the Meisner technique, they could be rehearsed in this one way of being, and it's really hard to follow a new direction. And then in life, you don't get a chance to rehearse it. A game changer is to get into the Meisner technique with me, because you will go through these things and it's an actual tangible way to facilitate a higher EI. I've worked with doctors, I've worked with lawyers who end up winning more cases because they can read behavior, because they know how to work off of people authentically, and also because you can express and feel your real feelings, but in a very healthy way through the craft of acting. It's very, very important. I remember in high school, I was one of those actors who would work with doctors who were under review and could lose their medical license because they were being sued for bad bedside manner, right? And so they knew the circumstance. They knew that we were actors. They knew that they were being recorded, and yet they couldn't change their behavior, even when given the opportunity. So in a circumstance like that, this is a way where you can improvise and change the behavior through the craft of acting by acting as if and actually trying it out. Your emotional intelligence, you can't sweep it under the rug anymore, but you still want to be professional or kind. So how do you do that? Sometimes I'll have clients work out that scenario in an improvisation. So the Meisner technique is an 18-month course, and that dives really deep into this process. But even in all my private coaching, I use some of this technique because it works, and you can actually use it in your life in many, many ways. And another mark of high EI is empathy. And see, where a doctor, service provider sometimes has to push down that empathy that might be really organic, like, oh my gosh, I know you're scared. They want to push it down because they're trying to do their job, but then they come off cold. When you're able to be present with somebody, is you can actually take in the behavior and what's actually happening, instead of brushing it over, sweeping it under the rug, pretending it's not happening. See, your intention could be good, but you could be coming off really cold. But then another important thing is to have empathy for people, but also you can't just be falling all over the place all the time, allowing their energy to suck you in. High emotional intelligence says that you're present, you're reading the behavior, you're accepting what is, but you're also staying in your own frame. By having empathy, you're having empathy for yourself and the other person. Something that could help those doctors under review is to check in with, what is my motivation? And to be compassionate, to help this patient feel better, to give them the diagnosis, to give them the diagnosis as clearly as I can, but also have some connection and empathy. So just to check in. Meditation is a great way to get present in the body. Also to investigate what you're feeling each moment. A lot of times when people approach a script before they've worked with me, they don't really know how they would react in a given circumstance. And we go through these different exercises that get you in heightened circumstances so that you can see how you truthfully behave. That alone helps you to really see your own real behavior in real time, but under the imaginary circumstances, right? Instead of just guessing, like, this is how I would be, or I would never be like this, you actually get to experience how you would be. This kind of self-awareness can help you to make a new choice. You're like, okay, every time I react in this manner, I have this result. So emotional intelligence is having the intelligence, having the data, right? That's intelligence, having data, being able to make logical choices based off that data. Same thing with your emotions. When you're having emotional intelligence, you're making intelligent decisions based off that emotional data. And it sounds so simple, and it actually is, but when we don't have practice at doing it, we just can fall into that same old pattern over and over and over. If you've watched any of my videos on my channel before, I have talked a lot about narcissists. I've been in relationship with a lot of narcissists. I'm talking about it so that I can also get that awareness, because that's how you can break out of it. That's the next step. Improving, boosting your emotional intelligence is by making a new informed choice and not being attached to this has to be this way. Having emotional intelligence says, I'm going to try new things and be willing to break out of the old patterns and mourn that old way of being. A lot of times, even when somebody has a high IQ, you can stay with some toxic relationship, even though you know logically it doesn't work, but you stay because it's known. This gives you an opportunity to try something new and break out of those old patterns, mourn that past, because you're actually feeling real emotions so that you can have a real connection. High emotional intelligence says, I'm going to be optimistic no matter what. I'm going to keep moving forward no matter what. Even if all these times in the past it was this way, I can create a brand new future. So sometimes that's where, somebody, again, like a doctor, can fall short because maybe over and over in the past they saw a patient with grim outlook. That's not helping that patient. That patient who, if they read their behavior and they were really present with them, they would see that they need some encouragement. They deserve that in this moment right now. That goes beyond your intellect. It's not an intellectual experience. It's something to be actually experienced. You can't just talk about it. You get to experience it. Just like life. It's the craft of being human. So these are powerful ways that you can boost your emotional intelligence. I've seen it time and time again. People with PTSD saying, wow, I can actually feel my emotions and I feel like I've released some stuff and I feel better and more open than I've ever been. Doctors and lawyers being able to communicate better, therapists. So it's not just about actors. But even if you never take an acting class, what I suggest you do is start noticing other people's behavior. Start really attuning to their behavior, not what you think things should be like. See, that's the other thing. When you're approaching a role, often actors go, I think it should go like this. You have to abandon all that. Instead, put yourself in the actual present situation. Work off of what is actually happening. Instead of going, it should be this way, it should be that way, and resisting, you accept what is and you make new choices from there. The other thing I invite you to do is to just really listen, to listen more than you want to talk or be heard. When you notice an urge to interrupt, instead just listen. Practice not judging yourself and saying all the things how it should be, and instead listening to what is. I wanted to make a video a lot sooner than I have, but I had all these dental emergencies, and then I was on the road a lot, and I had to I actually got to, I didn't have to, but I was breaking that old way of being. The old way of being would be like, I have to do this, I have to get a video out. And the new way of being was like, it is what it is. These are the circumstances I'm dealing with, emergencies. And then it was funny because I was thinking about this very thing with emotional intelligence, because I had to go to a few different dentists, and a couple of the dentists' bedside manner was terrible, and my experience was terrible. And then they started making mistakes. And I said, see, here's exact example of what I'm talking about. And then I had the difference of dentists who were really taking their time and working off my behavior, and then I relaxed. See, both of those dentists, the different dentists, probably had high IQ, but one of them could work off of me and listen to me and be present with what I needed, not how it should be, but what was. And it was a pleasant, awesome experience. The other two experiences weren't. I had 4 dentist experiences and I was like in the chair. So I had an opportunity to surrender to what is and make a new choice. My new choice was, the video will get out in perfect divine right timing. And then I wanted to send out emails and different people I needed to get back to. And I was in a dentist chair. There was nothing I could do, right? You can't email, and like it was mayhem. So I surrendered to the right people will show up, and I will be able to connect with the right people at the right times. No, this isn't how I want it to be. My mind, my egoic self wanted to say this isn't how it should be, but that's how it was. So I had a choice to make a new powerful choice out of the given circumstances. And then what was interesting is that then people were emailing me and new opportunities were coming to me. And the more that I relax and allow, the better it is. But it's hard sometimes to break old pattern because it's known. So this ability to go into the unknown is going to be a way to raise your EI or your EQ. Diving into the unknown, trying something new, expressing yourself is a very powerful way. So express yourself through dance, through painting, through an acting class. I have new Meisner technique classes starting every few months. Sign up for my newsletter so you know when I have a new class starting. I have scene studies starting. I have a Your Life Purpose group coaching class where you can just improv things, and you don't have to be an actor in any of those. It's just a matter of what suits you. But these are real tangible ways, and so many of my students are like, Leah, when are you going to talk about this? This has changed my life. Please talk about it more. I'm like, well, I have. But then I would go down this rabbit hole of narcissism, and that stuff is important. But what's more important is raising your EI so you don't get stuck in those cycles, so you can create a life you love, because why not? All right, I think I covered it all. Let me know how this resonates with you. I hope it helps. Okay, that's it.